Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio no pictures live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about what was once Australia's premier number one ranked bookstore. It was large, it was across 3 floors, it was fantastic bookstore. Any book you wanted, they would find it. Even books were out of print, they were pretty good at. They had an excellent education department or section. The history section was the best in Australia, and it was a great place to go. And they had great reviews on upcoming books that are about to be released, and all around. I mean, if you're in the business of buying, and I'm a bit of a book collector, and if you're in the business of buying books and having a look at what's going on, what's coming up, and that sort of thing, then this was the place to go. They had book signings from big name authors, and everything from children's stories to sci-fi to history and you name it. And I remember my son was particularly keen on this particular sci-fi books from an author, and he was there, so I took my son. He got to meet the author, and he's absolutely chuffed. And anyway, that was a while ago, and recently I had cause to. I was nearby. Actually, I didn't have cause to go to the bookstore. I was nearby, so I thought I'll stroll in and have a look. And I had maybe 30 minutes to kill before I had to catch up with some people. So I thought I'd just have a wander around. And it was, I mean, it's a metaphor of what's happening to the Western world. The once great vaunted history section is minuscule compared to what it was, and the selection of titles is certainly perverted in the extreme. So again, it's not just the decks being stacked, that it's being cherry picked and subverted, undermined, and seems its sole purpose is to humiliate white society and degrade it, and again to subvert it. So say the World War II section, for example. Now you would expect there'd be books on the military campaigns, the generals involved, what sort of weaponry was used, because there was a time of huge technological change in weaponry. And so you think that, there's a wide variety, and there's battlefronts all across. There's war in the Pacific and Japan and Germany and this and that and all over the place, and lots of geopolitical stuff in and around that. But is that what's there? Well, no. Pretty much, not every book, but the majority of books are The Diary of Anne Frank. That got star billing. I mean, you'd think it was the premier book from World War II about a Jewish teenage girl in, I think it was Holland. That's star billing. That's got the prominent position, and it's multi-facing on the shelf. No book has that level of star billing. Now, again, so I noticed a few books there were from Jewish authors. How I Escaped Hitler's Bloody Killing Machine. How Little Jewish Children Escaped the Nazi Death Squads. And very dramatic sort of titles. And I had a look. I thought, wow, that seems to be quite. So I stopped to actually count the amount of Jewish How I Escaped the Nazis, the Holocaust type books, and just over half the titles. This is about World War II. Just over half the titles in there are about Jewish stories about how I escaped the Holocaust. So many people escaped the Holocaust. You wonder, was there even one, given the amount of people who escaped? But anyway, so clearly the Holocaust, or now it wasn't that the Holocaust gets star billing. That wasn't the point, but that and if you read the preface or the frontispiece or the introduction to the thing, we're in an evil situation in the world today in America with Donald Trump, and the Nazis are taking over. The Nazis, the Holocaust is every Holocaust upon Holocaust, 100 Holocaust, and the hysterical hyperbole You go, fuck, is this the world I'm in? And so it's all globalist propaganda trying to gin up this idea that there's a second, Nigel Farage in Britain, that Hitler, the AFD, Hitler, Donald Trump, Hitler, and Pierre Poilievre in Canada, Hitler. And so there are Hitlers and Nazis and fascists literally everywhere. And, flooding in your coffee cup, climbing out of your soup bowl everywhere. So this is the purpose of it, just this out and out propaganda. They're just using the Holocaust thing as a launching pad to deliver the, it's a propaganda delivery machine is what it is. So there was actually, so if I wanted to go and buy in this once premier bookstore, if I wanted to go and buy a book about, the battles of World War II and how, this happened and that happened, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find anything in this again. I mean, we're not talking about some corner bookstore out in the back streets. We're talking the premier bookstore in Australia. So, so the history section is not only now a great deal smaller than it used to be, but it's filled with propaganda, not with actual material that's germane to the subject. So World War II is completely about, Jewish people in the Holocaust. There isn't about anything else, which is, of course, is quite absurd. Now, if you go to the section on, say, British history, the titles that get what titles get star billing is always also key. Now, I couldn't find, looking through and I didn't have a whole lot of time, so I was moving fairly quickly, but I couldn't find a single book that spoke positively about Britain, its history, its empire, its mercantile period, its colonial period. Nothing was in there that yet. The book that had the biggest star billing, that is the multiple facings in the most prominent selling position on the shelf, was Britain's Evil Bloody Empire, the murderous empire, the killing, the mass killing, the murderous evil white people, the slavery, the butchery. And this is the sort of, again, the hyperbole that you see. What? And this is the one that gets star billing. Now, if that's something, a book like that would get published in the first place, given its outrageous hysterical propaganda, and again the hyperbole, it's written by an angry, high school girl whose mind has been completely warped by endless propaganda. That something like that would even get published in the first place is in itself a problem. Now, if you look at the publishing house, they're super woke. Now, somehow that gets star billing in the shop. There was one book there it was done by a historian that used to be quite good, but he's commented himself that he can't get anything published unless he, at least denounces white people to some extent. And he's been through a couple of divorces, so he probably needs the money, but his was probably at least it gave some lip service to the accomplishments of the British Empire. And as empires go, I mean, if you go throughout history, the history of empires, as empires go, the British were actually pretty good. If you're wanting to be colonized by anybody, or if you were a third world, Stone Age people, and you wanted to be colonized by anybody, you'd probably pick them. But anyway, so there was this, every book you pick up is constant propaganda denouncing white people and the empire, and the fact that the white countries are the richest, most stable, most livable, and this is there's no concession of that. That just proves they're all Nazis, and so on. And I mean, what a disgusting way of running a history department. German history, you'd think that German history had began in 1933 and ended in 1945. I mean, there's nothing, it's hysterical anti-Nazi everywhere. That's all they talk about. So that's not much good. When you go to the Russian history section, though, the Marxism gets a fairly gentle touch. Stalin doesn't get much of it. There's not much there denouncing Stalin, the murderous regime, tens of millions of people, the murderous regime of Stalin. Nah, hey, that's all right. Chinese history chairman Mao and the Cultural Revolution, but not really that much there. I had to look around to see what if this book's about, and again there was no hysterical hyperbole there, nothing like the treatment that the British Empire gets or the British get. So now, but then I look at the gender studies department. Now the gender studies section used to in Australia at university was gender studies, given the amount of books. So gender studies, cultural studies, climate disaster and Armageddon. These are now the big sections. So they just happened to tick all the boxes. Racism, Nazis are everywhere. They have just tick all the boxes. The globalist project. Isn't that incredible? How the book distribution, the book featuring, perfectly aligns with the globalist propaganda. Wow! I mean, is that a coincidence or what? So having a look through that, it was clear. Now I had a look at the owners, and now the company that once owned this bookstore. They've got a few other stores around the country, but this was the flagship. They've switched to a franchising model, and they've sold the franchise to effectively an activist think tank, and the think tank is closely aligned with the globalist project and SPAT project. So that's the thing. But also, if you look at the publishers that have their hatred of white society, hatred of white people, hatred of Britain, that sort of stuff, hatred of the patriarchies of Nazis, and they are the ones who are getting their books featured. So only books that pour hatred upon white people and accuse them all of being Nazis, they're the only books that are getting featured. The only books. No other books are getting featured. Only the hatred of white people books are getting featured. Now, if you look at the sort of go into the website of this book outfit today, and they charge a fee. So if you just have one facing on the bookshelf, and you don't have to pay a shelf, like a shelf feature allowance or shelf placement allowance. But if you get 3 and 4 facings on the shelf, that's 4 books sort of side by side of the title, and you get different places like feature or promotional positions, things like that, you have to pay quite a lot of money for it. So why is it that only the books that pour hatred upon white people and accuse white people of all being Nazi, fascist, misogynist, why is it those books are the only ones getting featured? And why is it the publishers are able to pay only for the books that pour hatred upon white people? Why is that? Why is that? Because that's not a natural, organic thing. So you look at the books that are featured, and again, assuming they are paying it, maybe they're being given this as an ideological favour or something, but assuming for the moment they are paying these extra allowances for the feature positions and promotional positions for the books. That's a lot of money. So you'd think, well, the book needs to be selling well in order to justify this. Now, if you're selling gazillions of books and so on, well, that's fine. Then I can understand it. But if you look at the selling lists or the ordering lists and so on, which you can compare, and then you look at the lists on the Amazons, things like that, of how these books are selling, they're way, way, way down the list. So they're not featuring books that are selling well. So there's no demand for these books. So it's like how they infiltrate the Star Wars and the Lord of the Rings. The whole purpose of the infiltration is not because there's an audience that wants to watch it or they need it or they're buying it. It's subversion of Western culture. That is the objective. And this is what it is here. These books aren't selling. So they're desperately trying to promote and push books that pour hate on white people. But these books aren't selling. Now, if you take out the number of books that, say, libraries get or schools will buy, because if hate's on white people, then schools, universities, libraries will always jump on it. But if you take away those sales, those trade-type sales, then hardly anyone's buying this book. So they're engaging in aggressive, expensive promotion for books that hardly anyone's buying, or in terms of the buying public at least, are not buying. But it goes to show how desperate the propaganda is. It goes the same for the subversion of the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and the like. No one's really watching these things, and they're losing vast sums of money in doing it, but they're so determined, so frantically determined to push the anti-white message and subvert and undermine Western society that they'll continue, even though they're losing vast sums of money. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.